How many of you like a parade? Everybody likes a parade. Most people like a parade. And you don't have to march in it. I know Bill is actually marching quite a few parades. But there's all kinds of things that go on in the parade. I mean, what are some of your favorite things that happen in a parade? What do you like the most? The Shriners, your little motorcycle. What else? Anybody else? Horses, horses, horses. The mummers? Yeah. What else? Floats. What's the mummers? The marching band. I mean, there's all kinds of good things that happen in the parade. Exciting. I enjoyed parades as a child. To be honest with you, I don't necessarily enjoy them as much now that I'm an adult. But it has nothing to do with the parade. It has to do with getting to the parade. And then leaving the parade. But parades are pretty spectacular. They're magnificent events. They're always heralding or celebrating something big or extraordinary. Something worth, well, making a loud noise for. But when I go to a parade, the thing that I enjoy the most, not necessarily the bands or the floats. I like the cars. The cars. Now, I'm not just talking about any car. I'm not talking about your next door neighbor drove the Toyota down there in the parade with their Toyota Camry or something. Yeah? I'm talking about the cars. And I'm not talking about cars that are just on their own. I'm talking about the cars that the politicians select. You know the cars I'm talking about? I mean, the politicians, those who hold office, those who are wanting to be elected, important people in our community, the beauty queen or king or whoever it is that's important. And they all come in these cars. And I like to see what kind of cars they pick out. And they do it very intentionally. I mean, the car you're in the parade, makes a difference, doesn't it? I mean, it says something about who you are. I mean, think about it. Really fast, brand new Corvette. What does it say about you? I'm fast, I'm sleek, I'm dangerous. Right? Isn't that what it says? Or how about some of the old vintage cars? I'm conservative, I'm classy. I'm an upstanding individual. I've endured the test of time and I still look good. Right? I mean, isn't that what that's all about? Or how about a Mustang? Huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. How about in particularly a Mustang convertible?
Oh, yeah.
1966, red, white top, pulled back, black interior. I mean, what does that say about somebody? Bill said the seats are hot. 34 Ford, not quite as good as 66 Mustang. Just kidding. And the reason I say that is that I have a 66 Mustang sitting in my garage. When my father was running for school board, he borrowed it a couple times so that he could be seen in the parade. If you're in a 66 Mustang and people see you, it says you're conservative. Yeah, you're fast. It says you're classy, and then you can be a little on the edge. So when my dad was in the parade in that car, people looked at him, and they thought to themselves, that's the guy I need to go to. See, because I have a theory that he won the election because of the 66 Mustang. It's amazing because when he called me because he wanted to be in the parade, the Monthly, the Christmas parade, but he didn't ask for the Mustang then, he asked for Leslie's dually truck. It's all the image. It's all what you're riding. It's your ride. It's your ride. It says a lot about who you are, especially when you're in the parade. And we're in a parade today. We heard about a parade today. Jesus is entering into Jerusalem. Triumphal entry. There's a parade going on. And Jesus turns to his disciples and he says, go get my ride. And they're like, what do you want? Corvette? 66 Mustang? No. I want a donkey. Get me a donkey. Donkey. Sure about that? I mean, what you ride says a lot about who you are, doesn't it? Donkey. Get the donkey. As a matter of fact, I want you to go into town. You'll find a donkey tied up on the street. Untie the donkey and bring it straight to me. Okay. You want us to go into town and steal a donkey so that you can ride it into Jerusalem. You got it. I mean, isn't that what happens? I mean, Jesus doesn't say, go ask permission. He says, go into town and get the donkey that you will find there that's tied up. And then he says, oh, and by the way, if somebody says to you, hey, what you doing with the donkey? You tell them that Jesus needs it. So I was thinking earlier today, Jonathan, there's a really nice Mercedes-Benz out there in the parking lot. Go get it, boy, and bring it here. I mean, isn't that what's happening? I mean, part of the beauty of the text is this, that we don't necessarily need to, we don't need permission to do kingdom work. Now, I'm going to say that one more time, because the church needs to get that in their heads and in their hearts. We do not need permission to do kingdom work. And I'm not talking about the world's kingdoms, I'm talking about God's kingdom. And so if Jesus says, go get the donkey, go get the donkey. Go get the donkey. God's going to work things out. Because the donkey has purpose. As a matter of fact, you read the Gospel of Mark, and Mark's account of the triumphal entry, it just is amazing how much time is spent on getting the donkey. There's several verses about this. Instructions, what to say if people complain about it. Bring the donkey here. Put your cloaks on the donkey. I'll get on the donkey. And then there's like 2 verses of what happened, right? So this donkey must be important. I mean, what you ride must really make a difference. It's not just in the modern day that it makes a difference. It even was in the Ancient of Days. See, Jesus was about to enter into Jerusalem. In the text, we find that he is more directed, at least in the Gospel of Mark, than any other place in the Gospel. There's no more secrecy motifs. There's no keep quiet about it. Jesus turns to his disciples and says, go and get and bring to me. He's turned his face towards Jerusalem. He's going to face his death on our behalf. In the fullness of humanity, imagine the burden that was. Doubts, fears, concerns. You don't believe me? Go to Gethsemane with Jesus. If you can, Lord, take this cup from my lips. But not my will, but your will be done. In this text we find obedience. Obedience to God's will. Obedience to God. Obedience to the work of the kingdom unfolding in our midst. Obedience not only to God, but to all of us. And to the redemption of the whole creation. Jesus has turned his face to Jerusalem for that redemption. Wow. Wow. Get the donkey. He gets up on the donkey. And he begins to enter Jerusalem. Hosanna. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hosanna in the highest. They laid their palm branches on the ground and their clothes as Jesus entered. But why a donkey? Why not a Corvette? Many scholars believe that on that same day, there was another parade going on in Jerusalem. As a matter of fact, one even more well attended than Jesus' entry. You see, it was believed on that day that Pontius Pilate was returning to Jerusalem as well. Not through the same entrance Jesus did, all of that, but the other side of the city. And Pontius Pilate, well, he was riding a white horse. You might read the passage today and think, a donkey, that seems kind of crazy. Or you might justify it by saying, you know what? Jesus came in all humility. And Jesus did, offering God's self for us. I mean, that's the Philippian text, isn't it, that we read today? God becomes vulnerable on our behalf. And I think that's a powerful image and a metaphor for what Jesus did, this donkey being a humble steed. But this text reveals something even more than that. The very nature of who God is and what God's kingdom is about in the midst of our world. For Jesus isn't the only one who entered Jerusalem. There were many triumphal entries. And there were others who actually rode donkeys. You see, if you were entering the city as someone who embodied peace, you would ride a donkey. But if you were someone who was a warrior, who embraced the power and the structure of the world, you would enter Jerusalem on a horse. Jesus comes into Jerusalem, ushering in the very presence of God's kingdom, not in the power structures or the kingdoms of this world, but comes into Jerusalem as the Prince of Peace. A dramatic contrast from Pilate's entry into Jerusalem. Jesus does not come into Jerusalem to lift the sword, to conquer, or to take the throne of David. As a matter of fact, some of the proclamations we find in the Gospel of Mark where they say, "Blessed is our ancestor, blessed is the Lord, our ancestor from David." They're kind of missing the point. This kingdom is about life. This kingdom Jesus brings is about peace. This kingdom is about God entering into solidarity with God's creation, God's creatures, becoming one of us, humbling God's self, even to the point of death, that we might live. And for those of us born into that life through Christ, that we may enter into the midst of the world as Jesus entered Jerusalem, not lifting our swords, not proclaiming our power, our pride, our egos, our titles, our success, but entering into the midst of the world as ambassadors of Christ's peace and God's love. Jesus Christ turns his face to Jerusalem to bring peace. To the glory of God the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.